Hello, thank you for tuning in to the Species at Risk Conservation in Coastal Douglas-Fir and Associated Ecosystems presentation. My name is Janet and I am Executive Director for Malaspina Land Conservancy. I will guide you through a short PowerPoint presentation on the study that we are involved with here in the Powell River Regional District area. This is a 2-year study which started in August 2016 and continues to the end of March 2018. It is a project led by Amy Mitchell of the Lower Mainland biology company Athene Ecological, who received funding from the federal government's Habitat Stewardship program. Here we see a map provided by the Coastal Douglas-Fir Conservation Partnership. The Coastal Douglas-Fir's global range lies almost exclusively in BC, and only 1% of its original range remains as forested land. In fact, when you look at the map, you see that most of the Coastal Douglas-Fir zone is located where we have our urban centres. It is the smallest and most at-risk biogeoclimatic zone and is of conservation concern. It contains the highest number of species and ecosystems at risk in BC. Much of the remaining habitat is under threat from deforestation and urbanization. The intact natural areas are highly fragmented, meaning they are broken up into small parcels. Approximately 9% of the Coastal Douglas-Fir zone is protected in conservation areas. The extent of disturbance, combined with the low level of protection, places the ecological integrity of the Coastal Douglas-Fir zone in high risk. Despite considerable conservation efforts in other areas of the Coastal Douglas-Fir and Associated Ecosystem Zone, very little inventory or protection has occurred in the Powell River Regional District. Many species that rely on the zone are now at risk, including the following 6 federally listed species: the western toad, red-legged frog, sharp-tailed snake, little brown myotis, which is the little brown bat, western screech-owl, and rigid apple moss. We are looking for your help to find these 6 species. I will go over what to do and how to contact us toward the end of this presentation. Project goals are to identify and map the species at risk populations and habitats within the Powell River Regional District, formally protect priority habitats, create management plans for protected habitats, carry out ecosystem restoration, and engage and educate stakeholders in stewardship. This map shows where the Coastal Douglas-Fir and the Powell River Regional District overlap. This is our study area. It encompasses the islands of Texada, Lasqueti, Harwood, Savory, and Hernando, as well as the Oakover area and into Desolation Sound and onto the front country of the mainland Powell River area. We have formed partnerships for knowledge sharing, cooperative survey and monitoring effort with stakeholders, landowners, and the local public, and facilitating relationships with others by being a bridge in communications and coordinating works. So on to the 6 federally listed species that we're looking for. The first one is the western toad. If you see a toad in British Columbia, you can rest assured it will be the western toad. It is the only toad we have in the province. We are home to approximately 60% of all western toads, but the species is in steep decline. It is quite large, between 5.5 and 13 centimeters long. Adults tend to be quite fat, with short front limbs. Toads are toothless and quite warty. There is a parotoid gland just behind the eye that secretes a poisonous residue if the toad is stressed. Colors vary from light brown to gray, tan to greenish on top. A thin cream stripe can be seen down the center of the back, most prominently on adult females and hardly evident on juveniles. While the toad's tadpoles are vegetation eaters, enjoying a diet of algae, detritus, or aquatic plants, the adult toads have a variable diet of worms, crayfish, mollusks, spiders, and insects. They can be found near roads during rainfall or near water. However, they tend to avoid open water except during breeding season. They adapt to wet or dry forest types, fields, meadows, clear cuts, and aquatic sites. They use dikes, roads, and ditches as movement corridors. The population is in steep decline due to habitat loss, road mortality, and disease. Our next species at risk is the red-legged frog. In British Columbia, the red-legged frog occurs on Vancouver Island, the Gulf Islands, the mainland adjacent to the Strait of Georgia, and through the Fraser Valley to Hope. There is no information on current numbers of individuals in any population, but it appears that several hundred or even several thousand adult frogs can exist in a large pond or lake. In Canada, destruction of small ponds and other habitats appears to be eliminating populations of the frog, but it is thought to remain locally common at some sites on Vancouver Island. This relatively large secretive frog is associated with streams, ponds, or marshes, but may be found in moist forest conditions far from open water. It tends to be restricted to lower altitudes. Adults breed in cool ponds or lake margins, slow-moving streams, marshes, bogs, or swamps at least 50 centimeters deep with suitable vegetation. The frogs deposit their egg masses on emergent vegetation, and open water must remain until development from tadpole to adult has been completed. Red-legged frogs hibernate from November until late February, either in water or on land. The species breeds early in the spring for a period lasting only 2 to 4 weeks. Most eggs hatch in early May. Tadpoles generally begin to change into frogs in late July. Survival of eggs tends to be very high, but very few tadpoles survive to metamorphosis, and very few juveniles survive to maturity. A variety of predaceous insects, leeches, fish, salamander larvae, newts, bullfrogs, and garter snakes are known to eat the tadpoles, while many birds, raccoons, foxes, skunks, snakes, and bullfrogs eat red-legged frogs. The frogs, in turn, eat beetles, caterpillars, and a wide variety of other small invertebrates. The main threats to the survival of this species are degradation or loss of habitat, and predation and competition from introduced bullfrogs. The sharp-tailed snake is a small, slender snake, 20 to 45 centimeters from snout to vent. It is coppery or reddish on the back, with darker sides. The belly is whitish, with a half-moon-shaped crossbar on each scale. The tail is tipped with a small spine. A variety of habitats are used by this snake, ranging from garry oak grasslands to forest. It is usually found near water or in clearings near forest. Sharp-tailed snakes are rare and seem to occur in widely scattered populations. They are most active on the surface in early spring and again in late fall. They eat primarily small slugs and have special long teeth for biting them. It is a red-listed species in BC, and confirmed occurrences of sharp-tailed snakes have been recorded at only 7 locations. In British Columbia, sharp-tailed snakes are at their northern extremity of their range, and it is unlikely they were ever abundant. Conservation efforts have recommended private landowners avoid using pesticides and chemical slug bait, and try to maintain natural areas with protective cover in their yards. Little brown myotis, or the little brown bat. Although currently only yellow-listed provincially, the little brown bat is federally endangered. These bats use a wide range of habitats and often use human-made structures for resting and maternity sites. They also use caves and hollow trees. Foraging occurs over water, along the margins of lakes and streams, or in woodlands near water. Winter hibernation sites, caves, tunnels, abandoned mines, and similar, generally have a relatively stable temperature of about 2 to 12 degrees Celsius. Maternity colonies commonly are in warm sites in buildings, for example attics, and other structures, also infrequently in hollow trees. Diet includes flying insects, especially mosquitoes, midges, caddisflies, moths, various hoppers, and smaller beetles, sometimes spiders. Between 5.7 and 6.7 million bats of several species, but mainly little brown myotis, are estimated to have died in the last 6 years in the northeastern United States and eastern Canada. Mortality is associated with white nose syndrome caused by a fungus likely from Europe. It is believed white nose syndrome will occur in BC this year. Western screech-owl, Kennicotty subspecies, are little owls, roughly no more than 8 inches tall. They have ear tufts on a fairly square head, short neck balanced on a stocky body. Their tail is short. They are difficult to see against the bark of a tree. They are reddish, brownish, grayish, with white flecked upper parts, while the breast and belly area is pale with dark streaks. They have yellow eyes. They eat a wide variety of food, including rats, bats, and worms. Their feeding takes place at night, as they are nocturnal hunters. During the day, they reside in their roosting holes or look out from elevated locations. They live in tree cavities, but have been known to happily reside in backyard nesting boxes. They are quite tolerant of people and can be found in urban parks or forests. These owls have experienced a 90% decline in population in the southwest coastal BC area over the last 15 years. It is believed one of their threats is the barred owl. As the barred owl has increased in population, the western screech owl has decreased. Habitat loss also plays a large part in the decline of screech owl population. The owls like to roost in tree cavities, but as deforestation continues, these trees are removed. The western screech owl is easier to hear than to see, mostly because they are active at night. Listen for a short burst of accelerating high hoots, like the sound of a bouncing ball. Our final species that we're looking for is the rigid apple moss. This species has been found at 5 sites in British Columbia, including near Nanaimo, on Lasqueti Island, and at 2 sites southwest of Victoria. It occurs on dry cliffs, outcrops, and dry grassy areas, south-facing vertical rock faces, grassy slopes with good sun exposure, and mostly in areas protected from direct precipitation. The species grows either on well-humidified soil that appears to be disturbed or in crevices of rock outcrops. Thus, the species requires microhabitats free from competition from grasses and herbs. It is a red-listed species within BC. High competition for habitat and animal grazing areas has driven it to a life of clinging to vertical cliff faces. So what do you do if you see some of these species at risk? We'd like to know what you saw, where you saw it. If you have a GPS, that would be great. Was it on private land or public land? If private, who owns the land? How many you saw? What date and time did you see the species? Did you take photographs? And do you have any other details to help us find the species? Once you've gathered all of that information, you can contact us. You can either give us a call at 1-604-989-1007 or email atheneecological@gmail.com. Thank you very much for your help. By the time we finish this study in late March of next year, there'll be a series of presentations outlining the results, so look out for those. And these are our sponsors. Thank you.